Hello and welcome to Harvest, no matter where you're watching or listening in the world today, around the U.S., over in the Middle East through METV, Far East and Africa through FETV, or via shortwave radio. We want to say join us for the next hour. It's going to be a hot one. Even though we're kind of coming on the end of the summer here and things are cooling out on the outside, I think we got a topic today about the end times, and we're going to be kind of throwing some information out there with one of our guests, Dr. Todd Perla, who is going to be sharing some things that I think we're going to find quite interesting today.
Yeah, I started looking at it yesterday, and I don't know if I kind of like, I mean, it's a great book, but yeah. I know one of the things that was he was mentioning kind of got me a little nervous. You know, my stomach was doing a little bit of flip-flops here, talking about the rapture and
the tribulation.
Exactly. And when is the rapture supposed to come? You know, I'm one of those because I like the whole thing that it comes before.
You like that?
I like it.
So, God, let's bow down to Kelly's wishes here. And in thy great mercy,
yes,
get me out of here.
Exactly. Get me out of here before the chaos starts. So, but, you know, maybe it's not true. I don't know. And I'm very open to learning, even though I may not.
Well, we're going to do some learn scripture. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss any of today's show. Martin Luther, John Calvin, Charles Spurgeon, John Wesley, William Tyndale. What did these great preachers and first-century leaders like Barnabas, Clement, and Justin Martyr have in common? Well, they all believed, spoke, and wrote about a post-tribulation rapture of the church. Our guest today, Dr. Todd Perla, states correctly that the idea of Christ's church being caught away or rescued from the Great Tribulation would have been considered error by every one of those men that I've mentioned. And it's something, Todd, that we don't hear a lot today. And I think a lot of people, End Times, Church Deception is the book that we're talking about. Are you ready? Don't realize that the pre-tribulation rapture of the church doctrine only came about in the late 1800s. Tell us a little bit about the history of the doctrine of pre-tribulation rapture and kind of how it was brought to the church body.
John Darby, an Anglican minister, came over several trips over a 15-year period and introduced this doctrine. He was part of the Plymouth Brethren charismatic movement in London area, and he first came up with a doctrine. It was initially rejected by a lot of the seminaries, but then he found an advocate, Schofield, who had the
Schofield Bible, Schofield notes.
And they teamed up together. And the seminary students over the years read the material of Schofield that had Darby's pre-tribulation rapture doctrine in that, and then they slowly went over, and now it's the predominant doctrine in 90% of the churches throughout America.
And how's about in overseas, churches in Europe, in Africa, in Asia? Now, I realize that much of the missionary work that America done has probably brought that doctrine out to churches around the world.
Right. It's similar, but not as high. I do notice that in areas of the world where there's more persecution, they tend to have a different view, or more towards a post-tribulation rapture view, or they're less concerned. They figure it's all going to pan out, I guess.
Yeah, and that's kind of like we a little jokingly, you know, kind of mentioned that in the green room earlier. You know, I've kind of got a pan-tribulation theory that it's going to pan out. You know, I want to be ready. The main point is to be ready and for Christ coming, and to live in such a way that you're prepared and ready for Him to come at a moment's notice, in the twinkling of an eye.
We definitely need to be sold out for Christ now.
Yeah.
And though if we go back to Noah, but during the time before God judged the world for its sins the first time, He did give Noah some discernment and told him to do some things. Noah just didn't sit on his thumbs, but Noah built an ark for 120 years. He stored up provisions for his family and the animals, and I believe in these last days, as more and more Christians see the truth in this area, He'll talk to them in a special way, and they'll be less likely to compromise spiritually. And that's what I'm so concerned about the church today. I do not want spiritual compromise, and if we don't get through the deception of our times, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be compromised, and they're going to grieve God.
Yeah, and the very thing that Noah had to do to prepare for the day of judgment was the very thing that caused great persecution to come
Oh yeah, they
upon
laughed
his
at
life
him. Never
and
rained
family.
before.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if I'm not quite following you. So what you're saying is that you believe that Christians and believers will be around during the tribulation?
Yes, ma'am.
The whole thing?
Most of it, and I don't want to scare you, okay?
But you can't help that.
God is in control. We got an awesome God. I'm excited because I'm seeing prophecy unfold before my very eyes. I'm excited about it. We have a risen Lord that's coming, and as long as we're sold out for Christ, He's going to see us through. He's going to give us the strength we need.
So, according to how you've studied the scriptures, how close do you believe we are?
Well, when you look at the signs, it sure looks like we're close. The nation Israel is the barometer which we use to judge the coming clouds of tribulation. And the nation Israel became a nation in one day in 1948, as predicted in prophecy. And multiple prophecies have been fulfilled since then. There are a couple that need to be fulfilled yet in the future before tribulation will unfold. But I believe we are very close. I believe in our lifetime we will see this.
Todd, going back, taking a little bit of a historical look. So before the late or mid to late 1800s, before the 1860s, the thought of the church being rescued from the tribulation was kind of a foreign thought, going all the way back to the very first century. So the major reformers through the church age, the major leaders at the very foundation of the church age, in their interpretation and reading of Scripture, they saw it all pointing to the fact that the church was going through the tribulation. Right. What are some of the the questions that were maybe in your mind as you searched this out over the years, or that others have brought in regards to, why is that? Why does Scripture point? How can we see Scripture point in that direction when today everyone seems to think the other view of a pre-tribulation rapture is what the Scripture is pointing to?
Right. Well, Jesus talked about the end times in Matthew 24, and he talked about, in verse 29 of chapter 24, he says, after the distress of those days, the sun will be dark and the moon will no longer give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. And he says, at that time you will see the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds of the sky. And it talks about him calling out his angels with a loud trumpet call to gather the elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the next. So in the Bible, we don't see any evidence of the stars falling from the sky before tribulation begins, but at the end of tribulation, we sure do. And also in Psalm 110, it says that in the first and second chapter, it says that Jesus Christ will be at the right hand of God until he makes his enemies his footstool. He won't leave that position until near the end of tribulation, when the enemies are truly made his footstool.
How do you believe we need to prepare for something like that, Christians, particularly those in America?
I think we need to get as close to God as possible. We got to take him seriously. We need to be reading his word every day, evangelizing, not storing up these massive retirement reserves. I'm tending to recommend giving it to charities, and then also getting together with other Christians, networking, and look for yourself and see what the history of the church has done through times of persecution. They've made some provisions. They've done a few things to help the church go through tough times.
Yeah. Looking at a worldview with a pre-tribulation versus a post-tribulation mindset, how does it change the way we kind of see day-to-day life or see trouble, see hard times? Does it make us a little bit more ready to weather the storm than rather want to get out of here kind of thing?
If you take a pre-tribulation rapture approach, you tend to, I believe, be a little more complacent, because you see the world going to heck in a handbag, and you're under the impression that you're going to be gone anyway. But I think whatever belief you have, it should give you the impotence to witness and to realize that the days are evil, the days are short, and we need to be about the business of